The McCartney-McAlphabet, an A to Z guide to the solo career of Sir Paul McCartney. Hello there and welcome to a special bonus edition of the McCartney-McAlphabet. I'm David Ephgrave.
I'm Clary Sadler.
And you are you. Cheer, applause, there's the catchphrase.
I was about to say, and you are Terry Wogan, or...
That should be our guest, shouldn't it? It's like knowing me, knowing you.
Alan Partridge.
I always like it when I do podcast episodes and they say this is an emergency episode, which I don't think there's ever a situation where you need an emergency podcast episode. But yeah, this is a bonus episode that we're doing based not on a song by Paul McCartney, but on a song written by his son, James McCartney, with none other than Sean Ono Lennon, which makes a strange situation where there's a Lennon and McCartney writing credit, but a different Lennon and McCartney. So yeah, that's what we're here to talk about today. A little bit of background information. It was released in 2024. It's part of... You find these things, it's hard to find like decisive information with some of these things, but in some places I saw that it's a song from a forthcoming EP, in other places I saw it's a song from a forthcoming album, but the album or EP is called Beautiful, and this is the second single from that, and the first song I believe that's ever been released that's written by James with Sean. So
yes.
So what do you think of this whole thing, this whole shenanigan?
Well, I've got to be honest, I have not particularly followed either of the careers of any of the offspring of the Beatles.
Not to be confused with the band Offspring.
Give it to me, baby. Give it to me, baby.
Pretty fly for a white guy.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I've not really, other than the stuff that Sean Lennon has done with Cibo Matto, who I'm familiar with because they appeared in a couple of episodes of Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
When a black cat crosses my bed, a woman in the moon is singing to the earth. A woman in the moon is singing to the earth. La la la.
Yes, niche 90s show there, but I do I do love Buffy and I do love Cibo Matto, so other than that, not really paid much attention, other than sort of knowing that Paul McCartney's son James has been involved with Macca albums. Like, I think we covered one of them, didn't we? On, was it Flame and Pie? One of the tracks from Flame and Pie.
Right. Yeah, and we've mentioned as well the ones that he co-wrote on Driving Rain as well.
Yes, on Driving Rain as well.
Well, here we are. We're back in the sunshine again. No more worries, no more worries. No more pain, no more pain. Life is just suspended lonely. You only throw it away. Listen to your voice of reason. Yeah, call it a day.
So I've got to be honest, I was a little bit late even realising that my wife had pointed out, oh, have you heard that Primrose Hill? Oh, no, I haven't actually.
Yeah.
I don't even think I've listened to, is it Beautiful?
I heard a bit of it, but when he was sort of trailing it, but not a great deal.
In a fall for being my baby. In a fall for being my baby. Everything
So I'll give it a go. I'm not one of these that's like, oh, I love the Beatles, so I must listen to it, and then I'm going to love this track. I just do it out of a little bit of interest, and was fairly underwhelmed.
Right.
So I have given it a few. Well, we'll discuss that now. What did you think when you sort of heard a bit more about this as a project? And it was a little bit, like you said, is it an EP? Is it an
Yeah.
album? I think the first thing when I read into it, it made it sound like all of the Beatles sons were getting together. Of course, not
Yeah.
Julian, not Julian.
No.
You know, he always
Yeah.
gets ignored in these conversations. But yes, it was implied that Ringo's, is it Zach?
Yeah.
That's then, yeah.
Yes.
And then, of course, you read into it a bit more, and that's completely, a hearsay or whatever. But a bit of clickbait, perhaps, to get people excited about this particular track. And but yeah, it's still it's nice to have a bit more content in that world, I suppose.
Yeah. And it's kind of interesting anyway to consider that all of the Beatles' sons specifically have worked in music in some form. Obviously, it started with Julian Lennon having a quite successful career in the early 80s. And then Zach plays drums for The Who and also formerly Oasis. And James has had a couple of projects he's done in the past. I know he did some gigging as well with Paul and with Ronnie Wood. Had a couple of sort of solo moments. And then also Danny Harrison obviously has his solo stuff and also works and looks after the George Harrison estate really and the remasters. Yeah, and I think I've always felt a bit sorry for James in the same way that I think he obviously isn't quite as much of a natural sort of media performer. I mean, very few people are compared to Paul because he's always been a bit of a master at that. But there was a thing a few years back where he did an interview and it's a guy that, funny enough, I've been interviewed before with Doggett and Ephgrave, and there was this whole thing. I can't remember the precise details, but clearly prior to the event, it had been set up that he wouldn't talk about his family and he wouldn't talk about Paul, his dad. But this guy really tried to push into what was supposed to be like a light sort of media interview for one of his previous things. And then this guy sort of made out, oh, look how awkward he is and stuff, because he kept deflecting the thing of being asked about the thing that was set up. And this same guy was a person who, when he interviewed us as a double act for something we were doing, prior to the event, he'd said, oh, and do you want to do some comedy while you're on the radio? And it's like, when do you ever have, like, when you interview, like, do you know what I mean? You have a comedian come on, you don't go, and now could you do some comedy? It's not how it works. And we're like trying to explain, well, that's not really what we do. And we will be hopefully entertaining of ourselves talking, but don't expect us to be doing
routine.
And yet, despite saying that in advance, he kind of pushed that point as well during the interview. And also he did this really frustrating thing. It didn't help that there was because it was an in location recording. He went, so, Glyn, what do you think about that? And passed the mic to me. And then I'm like having to go, actually, it's David. So everything about it was just accentuating the awkwardness. And the fact is, if somebody says prior to the event, I'm not going to talk about those things, you don't then push it. And it's not like interviewing some disgraced MP. It's just interviewing like a guy who's just doing some music, So, and because he's sort of been on record as having had a few sort of personal issues in the past, and it's a hell of a place to be, isn't it? It's a hell of a person to be in that position. And when his sisters, his not his half sisters, but one of them's a big fashion designer, the other one's a photographer and a chef and stuff. So all of those things combined with trying to have a sort of low key music thing of your own is really, really difficult, and you get measured inevitably against the immeasurable. So I sort of feel a bit sorry for him anyway, because I just think it's misrepresented.
I think it's funny as well, because I think the quotes that I read from Zach Starkey was maybe there would be some merit to doing it if we were sleeping on some bed floor and but like.
Or like if they'd had the same background as the Hamburg Beatles.
But what, why does this need to happen?
Exactly.
And I kind of. It seems a bit contrived to try and push for that. Although I have seen some just nice, fan comments. I was reading through some comments on YouTube and having someone say, that I'm in my 80s. I grew up with the Beatles, and this is the closest thing I feel I've got to another Lennon McCartney, and for that I thank you. And I think I can sort of see that side of things.
And it's a nice thing as a separate thing to go. I'm sure in the same way that John would be really happy. The idea that they would both have children that would write together something, that's a really lovely thing. And they're all musicians anyway. They've all got musical careers. And I mean, it's like the thing they used to say, isn't it, about Julian, because Julian had quite a lot of success in the early and mid 80s with Saltwater.
Really good song.
Yeah, great song, yeah. And one of those songs where you go, yes, it does sound very John, because it's the family relationship and the sort of mellotron thing they do. But it's just a really lovely song.
We are a rock revolving around a golden sun. We are a billion children rolled into one. So when I hear about the hole in the sky, saltwater wells in
and then
my
that started to
eyes.
lead to, why doesn't Julian do stuff with the rest of the Beatles? And it's like, why would he do that? It's just a really weird sort of, that's not how it works. It's not like some weird sort of a dynasty. Do you know what I mean? You just keep passing it on. But so in brief, like you, I mean, initially maybe, I just thought, well, it's a kind of a bit throwaway. The first thing I noticed, which I also saw some of the comments saying, is the guitar is flat. The acoustic guitar is ever so slightly on the top E string, flat, and that goes against a bit the other stuff that's going on behind it. And that sort of makes me wonder, because obviously they would have noticed that, but a bit like the same way that Paul will say, we went for the feel and the feel was right in this take, so we kept that take. I wonder if that's
why.
But when the song starts with gently, do you know what I mean, picking an open chord or whatever, and then the top string, well, that's flat. It's just
almost the first note.
Almost the first thing you notice. But then, having said that, despite being slightly flat, it doesn't, as a whole, sound out of tune. But it's an odd thing.
No. It does feel like it was a stylistic decision. It is quite lo-fi anyway, isn't it?
And anything
anything like that, that it will be a choice. And also, you're not, because obviously he will have played it to his dad. He would play,
yeah.
And his dad would have gone, isn't that, it's not like they would not notice.
We laid on Primrose Hill, didn't know it still. You meant what you said. An overcast sultry day, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to say. We lay there forever, forgot everything, kissed beneath the stars, shooting to the hills, the stars exploded into a flame. Always remember Primrose Hill, Primrose Hill. I'll always remember Primrose Hill.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice. It's sort of you just have to take it as a freestanding thing, don't you? I don't really understand. It's like the stuff you're saying, and you notice it if you ever look at any comment on any of the Beatles' children's social media feed, and I follow, for example, Mary McCartney. I think she comes across really well. They're always very quickly to, something about your dad or something about, and the same with Julian Lennon. He gets it all the time.
Yeah.
And obviously they play into it a little bit. The fact that Julian Lennon's most recent album was called Jude and was a picture of him as a child, that plays into that. Sean Lennon, as a fashion thing, plays into that. And also they just look like those people. So it just, you can't help but feel it. It's nice it's a nice enough song. It's a nice enough sort of exercise. Some of the acoustic picking in it is very nice, mainly like the sort of link into probably what stands as the chorus, where they've got the slightly discordant, picking against an open note that's like a semitone out. And again, you're going to compare it to, if you're going to compare it to McCartney, you go, well, that's a very McCartney style picking thing. That's very, as in, by which I mean Paul. But also like the lack of information thing. It's not clear as to whether Sean plays on it. I don't think he does. I think it's just that they wrote it together. It might have been, but again, I couldn't get this is citation needed, that it was produced by David Kane, possibly, because some of his previous and recent stuff was, and also the weird thing, we talked about this in the last episode, but the sort of string samples, and there's a bit at the end, sounds very like, what was it, when I Do, we talked about recently, which were, rather than using the real instruments there, that, and I know that David Kane likes to do that, so that's a possibility. It's nice, it's nice, but there shouldn't be a but, should there? Because the but relates to, and obviously we're doing this from the point of view of a Paul McCartney podcast, so we're going to relate to that. But it doesn't. Imagine being in a situation where anything you do, let alone going into the same field, is going to be compared to your dad, who is in the biggest, most successful band ever, and that's the sort of impression you get, although again it's probably just a cliche and he might rail against this, but that maybe he found it more difficult than seemingly some of his siblings dealt with having Paul McCartney as their father, and I think it's a brave thing to even step into that sort of environment, when he's sort of closer in many ways to Heather, the child from Linda's first marriage that Paul has adopted, but in terms of kind of, for the most part, keeping out of the limelight. So assuming it's him playing the acoustic on it, all the picking's really, really lovely. You can definitely see a long and much of an improvement as a player compared to what we've heard him do on Driving Rain and on Flaming Pie. Yeah, and as I say, just because I hadn't really considered until I read somewhere sort of secondhand, I'd go, of course, it would be a Lennon-McCartney credit, which is quite a weird thing to have happen. Which, as I say, is a nice sort of... It shows how close they all are as a thing.
Quite nice that, everywhere I've seen, he's kept the Ono Lennon.
Yes.
Almost like to, it's not Lennon and McCartney, not quite.
Yeah.
It's Ono Lennon and McCartney, or McCartney and Ono Lennon, which is, because
I guess that's
partly to do with, because that's how they married and took each other's names, wasn't it?
Yoko Ono Lennon and
John Ono Lennon. So, that is a nice thing. And also I think that's just because it's the name he goes under as an artist. But what do you think outside of that? Outside of the slightly out of tune guitar and
it's funny, isn't it? Because as you say, we're only talking about this because we have a Paul McCartney podcast, and it was just a nice little extra bonus episode to get a bit more content out there. So we are doing that thing that we've just sort of been saying. It's difficult when you're measuring it up against, being in the shadow of the Beatles.
Yeah.
I guess if it was just because I haven't followed, other than I say those bits and bobs I mentioned earlier, a great deal of their kind of solo projects or collaborations at other projects, side projects. I just took it on face value as, how I listen to new music. I mean, I am in my 40s now. I don't seek out new music in the same way that I might have,
Don't seek out new anything.
Well, you kind of like what you like, don't you? And then Rag and Bone Man coming round.
Excellent.
We're recording this in the 1950s.
Oh, there we go. It'd be nice to edit that out. There we go. Producer. Keep it in. Keep it in.
Sorry, because there's normally sort of little trolley that comes around this time of day, bringing out your dead. So I'll be doing that after. Just
Add your dead on the top of it, you know. So yeah. But anyway.
I've lost my train of thought now. New music tends to be for me when an artist I already really, really, really like.
Yeah.
You know, for example, Paul McCartney releases a new album. That's me and new music.
Yeah, exactly. Me too. For the most part.
In fact, someone sent me listen to this new band the other day, and I was like, really? You expect me to listen to a brand new artist that I've never heard of before?
Yeah, I've made my life decisions. I'm not going to deviate.
I am exaggerating slightly, but
I know what you mean, though.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's nice, but in the same way that I might. Well, I'm not comparing myself to James McCartney. I'm not at all, but that I might have songs in the vaults because I think that we probably mentioned on the pod before that you and I are both songwriters and probably don't do it as much these days as we should. But I've certainly got tracks that I'm proud of, and then I've got ones that I dust off and kind of go, oh, that's all right, but I probably won't do anything with this ever again. Yeah. And I wonder if that sort of track falls somewhere in between. It kind of feels like a nice album track, a nice sort of track 3 or something.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean.
However, I don't think it was going for anything other than we've been doing some writing and here it is. I don't think it was going for the big, bold, we are the sons of the Beatles and two of the Beatles and we're doing this kind of,
And why should it?
That's the sort of thing, isn't it? It becomes measured against the immeasurable, as I said earlier on, and not allowed to even sit in its own space. And that's the same, I think, when you hear, we've talked before about how amazing it is that Paul McCartney still writes, let alone to the extent that he does. But even for himself, he's competing against a very specific period when in his 20s. In like 6 or 7 year period, and constantly having to compare his stuff, or other people will compare him to that past, and somehow say that one shouldn't allow the other to exist, or he should just retire. All those boring things that people say.
Yeah.
Like I say, with James, again, when you look at people, anyone in the public eye, anyone not in the public eye to an extent. Social media can give you a hard time, and pretty much always when I see any posts from James McCartney when he's doing something, there'll be people commenting on the way he looks, and so to even stick your head up above the parapet at any time when that's happening, and purely because you look like your dad, but you somehow got to measure it against him, and it's just so and his mum and his siblings, and if you look at. Say like Zach Starkey is an excellent drummer. He plays with The Who. He's played with Oasis as their drummer, which in of itself is a very odd thing, isn't it? To go, there would be a situation. Obviously, the Beatles and Who were contemporaries. They played on the same gigs and stuff. But one day, Ringo's son would play with like his dad's friends. It's such a bizarre thing, and also it's kind of bizarre and surprising that all of them, as I say, have gone into music in some form. Particularly when you are, we compare with our songwriting it to people like the Beatles, but we're not related to the Beatles.
Exactly.
So,
how do you do that? And I guess, so say if they were trying to do some writing together just for the fun of doing it, as you might. And I suppose in a way, if it is an album, it would help more because you could sort of hide it amongst it. But inevitably, even if it's never intended to be a single, if they've written something together, it is going to get attention.
Yes.
And then that goes straight into comparison. And again, like I noticed one of the top comments on YouTube was, don't quit your day job, fellas.
And you're like...
also, why do people have to be like that? We've said this before, but...
Yeah.
Why? What? Because they're not Lennon and McCartney? And also, what do you think their day jobs are? Do you think that they go and like... Do you know what I mean? They don't have jobs like that.
Because
they are the siblings of John Lennon and Paul McCartney, and also they're musicians and stuff, but it's not that they don't work for what they do, but like, for example, Sean won an Oscar recently, didn't he?
I didn't see that
for the film that he
it was the animating.
Who is this person who says don't give up your day jobs? And what did they do as a day job? And
Do you know what I mean?
just fuck off. It's just such a... So, that's bad enough anyway without, like I say, just going, well, look, yeah, my dad might do that, but I do that too. All my childhood, I've had guitars around me. I've played guitar. Does it have to be in any way like my dad's stuff? Does it have to be a massive success for anyone? There's very unlikely you can be anywhere near the success of them. Why can't it just exist in its own space? And I think it's nice enough. It's like you say, it does feel like a sort of album track. We've made it the second single of a current project, but obviously it's the one that's going to get the attention, and it's fine. It's not. It's just. Other than I like the guitar picking on it. That's very pretty. Didn't really like the solo. The guitar solo is a bit.
I've pointed that out. It feels a bit. I think by numbers is what I said. Maybe that's
generic was what I wrote down.
Yeah.
Some of that's the sound as well. The guitar sound is just a bit sort of muddy, sort of a bit, again, Oasis-y. It's got that sort of not very, I don't know.
Kind of lackluster, but not in, it's like that's what it's going for.
Yeah.
So in that response, maybe not lackluster, like laid back, mellow to the point of being almost disinterested. But again, I think that's the point, it's kind of it's like very Oasis.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Who based themselves famously on
exactly. And it sort of feels like the song, so as a result, kind of pieces out. It kind of loses its way a little bit. Also, and because initially, before I looked up what the song meant, I think it was if you don't know the backstory, and I'll say about it in a sec, but if you write a song about hanging around Primrose Hill, being a very affluent part of London, it does kind of make you sound a bit like a I don't know. Do you know what I mean? Sort of, if that's his... I mean, because obviously his childhood he's the son of a multi-millionaire. But it just feels a bit... Oh, I don't know.
I'm gonna write one about the Rit now.
Exactly.
The Rit. Yeah,
exactly. My Etonian friends and all the rest of it. But
But then I actually read a quote from him on social media who said, as to what the song is about, I had a vision as a child in Scotland on what was a lovely summer's day. Letting go, I saw my true love and saviour in my mind's eye. Primrose Hill is about getting the ball rolling with me and finding that person. And that, again, so we're going to compare it to the Beatles and compare it to Paul. That reminded me of On My Way to Work, the Paul song, where he says, all the time I dream of you, how far away the future seemed. How can I have so many dreams and one of them not come true? And he said that was kind of about when you were a kid and before he'd done all the sort of being a professional musician. He was like, well, there's someone out there that will be my partner maybe in the future, but will I meet them? Will I meet my true love? How do you make that happen? Which is the thing I think most people have to a certain degree when they're younger of well, what if I don't? What if I... So rather than being, it seems specifically about him hanging around in Primrose Hill before going to the Ritz and the rest of it, it's and that's quite an advanced thing to go. As a child when he was in Scotland, he had this sort of vision of this thing. So I mean, obviously none of that necessarily comes across in the song. It doesn't necessarily have to. But would I have made that
instant judgment about the
Primrose Hill thing if it weren't for the fact that I knew he was from his background? Do you know what I mean? It's a funny thing because you can go and visit Primrose Hill as just a pleb. You don't have to be somebody. But so there was that. Oh, the other thing I wrote down as well, I don't know if you noticed this, but the intro really reminded me. I was like, where have I heard that? And it's the dum 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 da da dum at the end. And I realised what it reminds me of and sounds like is "Oh My Love," the John Lennon.
Imagine.
Okay.
It's worth and might be worth playing them to compare them.
laid on Primrose Hill, didn't know it still. You meant what you said. Oh, my love, for the first time in my life, my eyes are wide open. Oh, my lover, for the first time in my life, my eyes can see. I see the wind. Oh,
But the sort of instrumental, sort of how many bars that is, 8 bars or whatever it is, the intro, just has that same sort of feel. Not quite as intricate chords,
with a little
interval at the end. And again, it's like, I think I would have thought that, irrespective if I knew who wrote it. I think because it's just something that you go, what is that? But yeah, it's just a small thing. But again, it's kind of interesting. I mean, surely again, like between the two of them, and when one of them is John's son, John and Yoko's son, and you would be kind of aware that sounds a bit like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, and also I wrote down, what's quite surprising to think about is they're 46 and 49, James and Sean. And that's, there's this view of like them as older kids that are doing this thing that their dads did. It's like they're older than, they're both older than John was when he died.
Yeah.
they're both.
It's not, so Sean's nearly 50.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's just
It's weird, isn't it? But yeah, but it's nice. It's nice. It's not nice.
It's pleasant. That's the word I would use. Pleasant, mellow. It sort of does evoke like a nostalgic. It was funny that he said it's about him wanting to get the ball rolling with someone that he's interested in, because.
Or maybe someone that he doesn't even know.
Yeah,
who is that?
Hasn't met them yet. Yeah, because it does feel like a nostalgia for a place, that might have had a significant, meaning to a love. So I quite like that slant, that it's a love that he's not even had or not even met. That gives it a nice. But again, that doesn't come through in the song. It's when you read that kind of stuff makes it interesting. To me, more than the link with the dads of the writers. Exactly. It's that stuff, and the fact that, like you say, what does someone with that legacy and that family history that goes holidaying to Scotland and hangs out on Primrose Hill, what is the stuff that inspires him and his creativity, and that kind of thing that does make that. Again, not more of an interesting song, but it adds something to it, And
I don't get the sense of any of them really, whatever the career is that they've gone into. I don't get the sense that any of them have had it made easy for them by who their parents are.
Yeah, exactly.
And I know obviously it gives them opportunities. It's given, Stella an opportunity as a fashion designer, but also she's clearly come up with the goods because she's one of the most successful fashion designers. And Mary McCartney's photography and her cookbooks, and like I said about Zach Starkey, it might have been the inroad to getting these things, but the fact that he, while Oasis might employ one of the Beatles kids because it's one of the Beatles kids,
who aren't going to
do that, are they? Because they're just not going to need that. So. Yeah, at least there's a sense of it has its own space, like you said, about what is inspiring him. It doesn't have to be anything like what his dad does. And I don't think, other than obviously it being a notable story, they've written this song together, it's not like he's really massively using McCartney to massively promote it in any way or give him any extra chance. Really, and it's copyright's owned by MPL, but he manages... And Paul manages to stay just enough out of the way of it,
for it
to be its own thing, and that's lovely, really, because it's not like And I think they've all done that. To be fair, all of them in their own careers in their own ways. But yeah, it's nice. It's not not nice, to use again that double negative. And like having heard him as well sing previously before, not so much on this, but he's got quite a high range and a big voice, which again, you wonder where that comes from. Yeah, and again, you know, if it's a song about meeting a love that you may never meet, when your parents are Paul and Linda McCartney, who are just about the perfect love story, there's a lot of pressure involved in all of those things. But also, I think you get the sense of the love in that family, and yeah, it's nice. And as I say, it is nice that the two of them wrote it together. It's nice that they felt the want to sit down, presumably with a couple of acoustics, and just do it. You know, because to even try that
for anyone,
let alone when your parents are literally Lennon and McCartney. And it's a nice thought that when John and Paul wrote all those songs in the 50s and got together, the idea, you know, a bit like James having this thing of in the future meeting this person, the idea that their two kids
all those many years later
would do the same thing. I think that's really quite special, isn't it?
It's got to be.
Yeah,
it's got to be that's got to tug at the old heartstrings of Macca, I would imagine.
Absolutely. Which just quickly reminds me of, there's a song on Kisses on the Bottom that he sings. I forget which one it is now, what it's called. It's really, really pretty, but it's about imagining his own child in years to come, you know, and it's the line is something about when their hair is turned to grey.
And what, you know,
and that made him very emotional because he thought of his daughter, and this idea that, you know, because obviously he's an older dad, you know, at that point he's in his 70s. He won't be there for that time. But the fact that he was even considering his daughter in her own old age and being tugged at the heartstrings of what will happen, you know, is a really sweet thing.
Music, I can wish you merry music while you're young, and wisdom when your hair is turned to grey. But more I cannot wish you than to wish you find your love, your own true love this day. With a sheepish eye and a look of the truth, and the strong arms to carry you away.
They are very much a supportive, close-knit family, and they've lost, you know, their mum in a horrible way, and it must tug at the heartstrings, absolutely. And like, oh, that's my son doing that. That's my son doing that with one of my best mates' sons. You know, that's just so sweet.
Do you know, yesterday I've got newborn baby twins. One of them is just crying there in the background. But I was singing Beautiful Boy. Well, changing it to Beautiful. I've got boy-girl twins, so changing it depending on who I was singing it to. And I, anyway, long story short, but I played the actual track yesterday because I kept getting one of the lines wrong.
Right.
I just wanted to have a listen to what the lyrics were, and of course the footage for the video that's on. I guess it's the official video, is of them sort of in the garden, you know, like a family.
Home video.
Home video, having a cup of tea or whatever, and Sean's in the background playing. Actually, it might not be in the garden, he's playing in the sea, I think. But anyway, they're out and he's in the background. And that line, I can hardly wait till you come of age, and of course.
But I guess we both just have to be patient.
I can hardly wait to see you come of age, but I guess we'll both just have to be patient, 'cause it's a long way to go, a hard road to hoe. Yes, it's a long way to go, but in the meantime
Yeah.
It's just such a it's beautiful.
And then what 3 weeks later, after that song was released, I think he was shot. Oh, I don't know if the dates quite
Pretty
that
much.
close, but yeah, no,
Pretty much,
fairly.
yeah.
And I mean, I was just bawling, just thinking of that, and
yeah.
so he had that to the equation, and what that must mean, even to Yoko,
and to have a child, as Sean being who he is, he remembers his dad, but he was 5 when he died, and to have a parent that's always present, and also even more always present because in popular culture he's a figure that he is. To always have that person kind of just out of reach is really a hard thing to consider, and to have that John wrote that song, which is beautiful and bittersweet even without what happened, and it kind of fits with the whole Paul's thing about don't wait for things, do it now.
The thing that the song "Do It Now," and
that comes from James McCartney Senior, Paul's dad. The catchphrase used to say, "Do it now, don't hang around." And even it's quite nice. There's some recording in one of the recent short documentaries about Now and Then, where you hear the Beatles in the 90s talking, studio talk in the background while they're recording Now and Then.
Yeah.
And Macca says, "DIN, do it now." And it's because that's the thing. And it's like that is very much do you know what I mean? In their sort of DNA, and it's a really sort of put it there and all those things. It's all about that, and it's lovely. That's a lovely thing, isn't it? And to have that still happening, don't compare it to them in terms of whether it's as good. Don't compare it to any of those things, but go, isn't that lovely that is still happening?
And
those two people that met, in a Walton Village fete in '57 or whatever it is, what that led to. This is a small part of that, and it's a lovely part. So. Yeah, and actually, you're saying about Beautiful Boy, there's nice clips because it's one of the songs that Paul chose when he did Desert Island Discs in the early 80s. Yeah. And there's footage of him, I don't know if you've seen it, in the radio studio while they're playing, and he's kind of gently singing along with it.
And clearly getting emotional.
Because, he knows what John's upbringing was like, and he knows the thing you just said about, obviously, his dad didn't get to see that.
And to have that happen to your best
friend's family and your best friend was murdered.
I mean, come on,
that's all difficult stuff to deal with.
But it's lovely.
So it's worth it for that. All those things, and and I look forward to in future years when both yours and my children run the McCartney McAlphabet podcast.
Yeah.
It's going to happen. We pass over the legacy. It's not really a great legacy. You won't get much money out of it, but but if we don't get through that alphabet, they've got to do it for us.
Exactly.
But anyway,
several times over.
Yeah, absolutely. But let us know what you think of this song, of James McCartney's work, of Sean's work, of any of them, really. You can contact us on our social media feed. Don't tell us to give up the day job. That's McCartney ABC on X or Facebook or Instagram. You can email us at paulmccartneyabc@gmail.com or check out our podcast page, mccartneyabc.podbean.com. And do like, review and share the podcast because it helps everyone. Maybe not you, but it helps us.
It does. And, email or write in with suggestions for little bonus episodes like this.
Yes.
It's nice to get regular content out there that maybe doesn't take so long, and we can get it out quicker then, because it's it's nice to see what you all think, and it's nice to see those conversations without necessarily needing it to be in the usual format, which is great to do as well, but a little bit more timely.
Do let us know what you'd like us to do next, and outside of that, we'll be back here soon with another episode. So from that point, it's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me. And the babies that have now stopped crying, typically.
Yes. And also, next up, we'll play you a little hint as to what we'll be talking about next time. The McCartney McAlphabet is written and edited by David Ephgrave and Clary Sadler, and is inspired by and features selections from the music of Paul McCartney.